from drbean.com. Welcome to one more show. So, we have with us Sean once more. You have heard Sean before. Sean, welcome.
Thank you.
So, not this is a little sober and sobering discussion. So, please bear with me. This is especially for trying to figure out patients who may have long COVID or who may have injury after the vaccine, and how is their journey and what are the possible solutions they may be looking at? Where are the areas of challenge? Where are the areas of hope? So, Sean, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself? And
hmm
there is a video of you before as well, but just to refresh.
Right. So, just in brief, because the other video we really went into extensive details about my experience, but I'm a nurse practitioner based in the Northeast of the United States. And I received a dose of the Pfizer vaccine back in December of 2020, December 29th to be exact. Um, it's ingrained in my memory now because I just passed a 1 year anniversary and I'm still symptomatic with symptoms from the vaccine. So after the first dose, in quick summary, I had paresthesias um, pretty abruptly after the injection in my right deltoid. Those paresthesias were like numbness, tingling, like a cold and warm sensation up and down my arm. It progressed into the right side of my face with some tingling, uh, and then some flushing of my ear. Subsided after about 10 days. Saw a neurologist who said, since things have seen everything checks out, your EMG is normal, your routine labs were normal. If it subsides in 10 days, you should get the second dose. So on January 19th, I got the second dose. It exacerbated all the neuropathies again on the right side, into my face. I got tingling in my throat, um, like a prickling sensation in my throat. And then by day 4, day 5, I started to hear chime sounds in my right ear. So I was developing tinnitus. I started to get erratic blood pressures, tachycardia, and then severe abdominal pain. And by December 30th, I went to an emergency room seeking treatment, telling them I think I'm having a reaction to the vaccine. But the ER doctor wasn't familiar with vaccine reactions and didn't think there could be such a reaction like this. Um, because he hasn't seen it before. And I was trying to make the case, just because you haven't seen this kind of reaction before doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a reaction. Anyway, I was sent home with ibuprofen, and then things just progressed after that. The tinnitus increased in severity, ran around top hospitals across the country looking for answers, not finding any, getting very discouraged. Symptoms kept progressing. I developed positional orthostatic tachycardia, severe intractable insomnia, adrenal dumps. Uh, the list just goes on and on. I continued to have labile blood pressures. By August, uh, I developed generalized body neuropathies, stinging and burning in my hands and feet, prickling sensations all over my body, like like I fell in a bush that I was allergic to. I even had prickling in the inside of my nose, um, and that was very unusual. It was very pronounced. I mean, I my hands and my joints my would hurt so bad I couldn't even open up refrigerator doors. I Yeah, so I just continued to worsen over a period of like 9 months, symptoms waxing and waning. When I developed the neuropathies, I got, of course, alarmed. I saw a rheumatologist who put me on steroids. Unfortunately, it was prednisone, and I reacted very poorly to it. But the first few days I was on it, it started to calm down some of the neuropathies I was having, but it didn't fully resolve. So that's kind of a brief summary of the symptomatology that I experienced after the vaccine.
So, Sean, since then to now, um, what is your current state now? We are all hoping, we are praying that you, compared to last time you
Mhm.
met us, you are feeling better and you're improving. So
Right.
I would request two things, if you will. One, what is your current state? And two, what are the medicines that helped? What are the ones that didn't?
Right.
And again, for the listeners, it is important for this information to be available. It is important for others who may be suffering to be able to hear and see where hope is and where hope is not. So please don't use it as a medical advice. Give it its own right, that it can
Mhm.
reach someone who might get guidance from it. So this is not a medical advice. This is
Right.
not a doctor patient relationship. This is a patient who has the courage to come out and share with you what their journey is, to see maybe someone else can be saved by this message. So, Sean, what is your current state?
So, well, let me just add that my prior state was that I was very healthy. I'm a very healthy, young 52-year-old male, and had no real illnesses prior to the vaccine. I had no chronic medical conditions. I wasn't on any medications at the time of the vaccine. So, generally, very healthy. Never really went to a doctor for much of anything unless I had a bad cold or flu. So over the course of the injury, I started really floundering because no one really knew what to do with me. I saw so many ear, nose, and throat doctors. I went to many neurologists, immunologists. A lot of the routine tests were that would come up were normal, and I thought, well, okay, that's some in some ways reassuring, but in other ways very disturbing because I knew something was wrong. I just couldn't get the lab evidence to show what was going on. And then, the more doctors I saw, the more of the same labs they would run, and I would get very frustrated. I'm like, stop checking me for lupus. I know I don't have lupus. I know I don't have these known diseases. I have something yet to be known. It's a unusual vaccine reaction. So over the course, I tried various supplement regimens. I went to also alternative, complementary and alternative medicine. I did lots of like low histamine antihistamines, immune modulating supplements. Um, so for months, I was just left in that realm. Then by July, I saw a neurologist who put me on a low dose Nadolol, which is a beta blocker, which seemed to help my POTS a lot. It helped to control my heart rate, and that alleviated some of my symptoms. By July, also my tinnitus, it sort of went like a bell curve, or I should say, yeah, like it like a bell curve. It kind of gradually escalated, went to a very suicidal level, and then started to trail off and get better. But when I exploded later on in August, everything ramped up again. My tinnitus came back to a higher volume. The pitch changed to a higher pitch. So I started just what therapies to continue on that realm. I took some Nadolol. Then when the neuropathies occurred, I took some prednisone. Didn't wasn't reacting very well to it. Went off of it, and then was kind of again floundering. What should I do? And I was working with a very good neurologist in New York City who was one of the first people to first believe me and have some sort of idea of what kinds of things were going on. She couldn't give me a diagnosis, but she knew how to label some of the components. So she knew I had positional tachycardia. She suspected small fiber. I did a small fiber biopsy that did show some nerve loss at the level of calf and thigh. but it wasn't totally definitive. They didn't want to say it was totally definitive for small fiber, but I was in the less than fifth percentile for my age. So together we discussed the possibility of trialing immunoglobulin IV. So I started at the end of September, and I noticed when I started to do it, my tinnitus would spike a little bit, and I would get a little bit nervous because if you have tinnitus, you know that's very debilitating symptom to have for people. So I got scared and I kind of said, okay, let's take a step back. I only did half a dose. I said, let's think about it. End of October, we decided to retrial it again, this time using some IV steroids on board. And that was when I did my show with the last show with you, and I developed every side effect almost possible to IVIG. I had hemolysis, mild, but I turned jaundice. As you remember, I was on your show with a little bit jaundice. I got phlebitis and a clot. So, so some not all great things with it, but I will say it did seem to resolve a lot of my neuropathies. So after 2 treatments, or I should say 1.5 treatments, almost all of my neuropathies were, well, they flared exponentially in the beginning. They calmed down.
And this is when that they calm down.
So probably around in the beginning when I did the first half dose, everything exploded. I had like burning skin up my neck, my face, my hands, prickling again everywhere. And then I would say probably 2 weeks later, calmed down.
Hmm.
Then when I did the second dose, I had all those side effects. But again, I had like a period where things calmed down. I had about 2 weeks where I was symptom free, other than the mild tinnitus, or not mild,
Hmm.
but moderate tinnitus.
Hmm.
So that gave me some hope, and I thought, oh, this is possible course. And then because I reacted so poorly to it, we decided IV was probably not the best option. I wasn't tolerating that brand, and I wasn't tolerating the IV route. So in discussions with neurology, we decided to try subcutaneous version. So I did, I think now four rounds of subcutaneous immunoglobulin. Every time I do it, I do flare and some things worsen, and then things calm down. So right now my tinnitus is flared and I have headaches, but my facial paresthesias are at bay. My hands and my feet neuropathies are resolved. I have very residual right ulnar neuropathy, mild, intermittent, that comes and goes, but very mild. So some success, not a total, I would say not a total win.
Got it. And when you say that after every dose you have a flare up and then things calm down, is that relative to the flare up or do they calm down compared to before? Meaning, at the end of the day, do you feel that overall, just like you said, things are resolving? Overall, you kept becoming better, but you would have bumps of the flare ups?
Yes, exactly. So I
And
would do a dose, I would flare, and then with this X amount of time, a lot of it would calm down
and better than before.
and better
So,
than before. But the neuropathies had, after the second big dose with the steroids, the neuropathies kind of really, the body neuropathies kind of really dissipated
mm,
quickly. The facial stuff uh, remained, and some of the right arm stuff. So I think what's interesting to me is that the places where that I really that where I really was affected early on with the first dose, the paresthesias, those are the places that are the most what's the word, most problematic for me. They're the places that flare the most. They're the places that seem to be um, not responding well to treatment. So like I have
Interesting.
some patches of numbness and skin kind of tightness feeling on my elbow and my arm where I was injected. And then the right side of my face, the skin will feel like numb and tight. Sometimes I can trace the actual nerve that's irritated. It will go along down my midline of my jaw, over under my eye, above my eye, into the corner of my lip. And it's kind of strange that you can actually almost feel the exact nerves that were affected.
And it is actually, my wife has this issue going on as well since her vaccine. And one day she was saying it to me that, hey, I have this burning sensation and tingly sensation. And she thought it was difficult for me to comprehend where. So I
Mhm.
picked up the facial nerves and I said, here. And she
Yeah,
was in a shock. She looked at the picture and she was in a shock, saying, yeah, yeah, this is the exactly areas where
exactly.
I get these. And
You
I can
you
actually
can
see the tingly and the muscle twitches going on as well.
right.
So, Sean, can I
My
ask you for a few drugs? I'm going to probably see the I Recover protocol and what are the things there, Dr. Bruce Patterson's. So, have you tried, for example, you tried fluvoxamine, that didn't help.
right. I did try that for 3 weeks low dose.
Naltrexone?
I am taking low dose naltrexone. I found some marginal benefit for that, in
Got it.
fact.
Steroids, any continuous therapy or off and on?
I did bursts of steroids. I remember in February and March I did, but they were always low dose, like Medrol dose pack type steroids, like not like a very high dose, long duration type steroid until August when they trialed prednisone. And then
Got it.
I wasn't taught my tachycardia wasn't really exacerbated the POTS, I should say.
Got it. And how about statins?
So I did do a consultation with the Patterson group, and I did take pravastatin, and I did trial ivermectin um, for I would say two weeks, 3 weeks,
Hmm.
and I didn't really see much benefit in my case.
Hmm.
Maybe I didn't do it long enough, but I didn't
And
see a
uh,
benefit.
and did you also try statins?
I did pravastatin.
And how was the reaction body's response to that?
I mean, I tolerated it fine. I just wasn't keen to be on a statin myself for a long period. Um, so I didn't do it. I did it. I did that with the ivermectin for about 3 weeks.
Got it. Got it.
So, and
So,
again, I'm not making these as recommendations to other people. These are things that I did in consultation with, my own medical consultations. And what works for me might not work for someone else. Everyone should consult with their own medical
doctors,
teams.
absolutely. And the reason for me to bring those drugs up is that so that when someone is hearing, they might be able to go to their doctors as well and say, here is a patient and who had
Right.
tried following things, and I have tried them, or I want to try them, or they didn't work, and maybe something else. So it may be educational or useful for a
Mhm.
doctor. Yes, it is one case, it's not generalizable message, but still it may help some doctors to learn more. Because Sean, I believe that you yourself have been in research, And so you have been doing a lot of research and trying to figure it out.
Correct. I spent a lot of time uh, doing my own research, guiding my own doctors because they, I mean, we have to face it. Doctors see a
Hmm.
plethora of patients, right, with a wide range of diagnoses. So not every doctor has like hours to spend every evening just to research,
Yeah,
my case. They have, people with other diseases too. They have to stay on top of. So I try to, educate them, send them articles that I find are that might be of use to them to guide them,
got it.
and then discuss, the the benefits versus the risks of different paths.
Got it. Luis Grande has a question. Moravirok. Have you tried Moravirok so far? Your
I
doctors have?
haven't.
Hmm.
I have not.
Hmm. Got it. And is
It,
there a
it's on.
plan?
It was on my list of things to trial. I think for me, the timing when I had the results from that consultation for that protocol, I
Hmm.
was already segueing to IVIG,
Hmm.
and I really thought that that was, for me, with my uh, range of symptoms, was seemed to be the best approach at the time
Got it. Got it.
in
So do you
consultation
have
with
that
my
on your
neurologist.
plan now to discuss with your doctor about that?
So if I decide to pause the IVIG and the symptoms worsen, I think there are, though that's in my toolkit of options. I think there's a few things that I've been looking at in
Hmm.
consultation with different doctors. I think one is, that protocol. Another is looking at apheresis.
Hmm.
I recently did some testing. I sent my serum off to Germany, where they are testing, doing more research type testing, and they run the labs on different autoantibodies. And I turned up positive for numerous that are in line with my symptomatology of POTS and neuropathies.
So
So
I want to talk
some
a
of
little
them.
more about this. Is that the Cell Trend Labs?
Yes, that was the Cell Trend Lab. So these are IgG labs. So if I don't know if your audience knows, but these are
It
not
will be great
IgM,
if we can discuss this a little bit because it might help once again some.
right? So they test for things like, the alpha adrenergic receptor antibodies, for anti-ACE2 antibodies, um, muscarinic antibodies, and I was positive for almost all of them that they tested, except for I think one of them. I don't remember the exact
And
one. I
were
can
you
look it up.
positive for anti-ACE2 as well?
I was. I was only negative for anti-alpha 2 adrenergic antibodies, but I was positive for anti-alpha 1, anti-beta 2, anti-muscarinic cholinergic receptor 1 and 2, and 3 and 4 and
Oh,
5.
wow.
And
So
I was,
majority, a lot of those are in viscera
yeah,
and blood vessels. And so that
yes,
means your blood vessel must be vasoactive incorrectly.
correct. And then anti-ACE2 and anti-MAS1.
Wow, so the anti-ACE2, and have you had a follow-up as well, or is this just once?
So they just run the labs. So they don't
Hmm.
offer you any medical guidance or advice. They are just a clinical research lab. You send your serum there, they send you the results. It's up to you to get your own medical guidance on the results.
Got it.
So I
The
did
reason,
discuss them with some medical professionals, and some were like, well, they're IgG. What does this mean? They didn't know. Then they were like, well, you had IVIG, maybe you acquired some of these passively through the IVIG. But I said, hey, look, there's a lot of other people injured like me who have also sent their serum there for testing, and they have not had any treatment, and their tests come back similar to mine.
So just me thinking aloud, these are not just IVIG, possibly because one, your symptoms are with others too. Number two, anti-ACE2 can be generated by vaccine or by COVID. Generally, the paper that I discussed a few days ago, and I'm actually going to go meet Dr. William, he's in UC Davis here. I corresponded with him. Uh, these would stay in 94% of the hospitalized patient and 40% of the outpatient. These develop and then go away within a few weeks, but in some people they don't go away. That means the immune system gets stuck in continuing to produce them for whatever reason, and that means they would continue to behave like a spike protein, and they would have the liberty which spike protein usually will not, because spike protein cannot run around without getting noticed by the macrophages. But these can go around, get connected with the blood vessels, they can get connected to so many places and behave with, work with ACE2. And similarly, when you are talking about the adrenergic and muscarinic receptor antibodies, these can either block them or trigger them depending upon what kind of bonding they're making. And that in turn can cause so many visceral reactions, including thoughts and tachycardias, and blood vessel activity can change. Alpha 2 and alpha 1 and beta are all in the blood vessels, and that can change vasoactivity. My point is, these are important things to follow. And for the audience, this is Cell Trend. I have no financial or no interest with them. I actually reached out to them on
Mm.
Sean's asking, and I requested if they can join us. They said, yes, we would love to, but then did not respond further. And that is my total interest. Sean is using them. Some other folks and me, after listening from me that I talked about Cell Trend, they said, hey, we did that too, and this may help. So Cell Trend is a company that looks at your takes your blood and sees what kind of antibodies may be generated and what kind of effect they can produce. Your doctor can interpret. Sean, back to you. The question that I had was, did you do multiple cell trends to see if the, for example, anti-ACE2 are supposed to go away after a few weeks? Are they persisting, hanging in there, or so have
Right.
you tried that way?
I have not, so I wanted to retest them. It's just a challenge because one, it's costly, and two, you have to FedEx them overnight international. So the cost is not, it's not exorbitant, but it's not small. I think
Is there any
so.
GoFundMe that we can share
Mm,
and help with these costs?
I mean, I think I can do it. I don't mind. I'd rather people donate to. I was going to talk about a nonprofit we set up and for research, and we're looking for donations there. I can talk a little bit about that, but I back to your point. I think it's something I'm thinking about doing once I'm off. If I pause the IVIG, I may resend my serum to see what it looks like after 2 months,
Hmm. Hmm.
and get some idea. My other option is if I can't get, I think I really would like to trial apheresis, and if I cannot get that here, I may go to Germany to trial that, because I really believe in my research that is the best way to eliminate these autoantibodies from the body. And I think there is some German research going on right now that they have shown that after 5 back-to-back sessions, they have been able to remove them and not after 6 months see a return.
Very
So
interesting. So
they
are
are
you going to
doing
go for
some
that?
cutting edge research there that I've been following. So that's probably would be my next move if I cannot get it done here.
Hmm.
I think some other options on the table were things like, trying to do a reset of the immune system with drugs like rituximab or Cellcept, um, but they have their own risks
Hmm.
as well. So first, I think I would like to see where I'm at, take a step back, see where my condition is, um,
mm, mm,
from the IVIG, see if the neuropathies start to return off of that. If
mm.
things do flare off that, then I think I'll look for my next move.
Got it. So
The only
praying for you.
downside is that I didn't mention is that since August, I also developed atrial fibrillation
Really,
from this persistent tachycardia. I think it just gradually evolved
yeah,
into a
is
new condition. So that was a very this happened recently, and that was pretty mind blowing and devastating because I'm only 52 and you're not supposed to have AFib at age 52, right? It's not common. It's
yeah,
really in your
yeah.
60s and or more in your towards your 70s when you develop such a thing. So that was kind of a devastating event to cope with.
And how are you doing there? Is that settled or that is still continuing?
It was when it first started, it was pretty intense. I was having numerous episodes throughout the day from morning, waking up, if I in laying in bed would start just if I turned to my left side, I'd get an episode. I noticed some EKG changes over time, like, but I never thought much of them because I was having these, tachycardic swings, but I would have like PVCs. I've never had premature ventricular contractions before. Then later I had premature atrial contractions. I had a perfect rhythm my whole life,
Mm,
never any cardiac issues whatsoever.
mm.
Um, so then, it wasn't totally surprising that this was evolving, but I was not something that you expect to have more added to your misery.
I am so sorry that you are going through this. To me, it seems like hearing your experience so far, it seems like there are some areas where you're feeling better, the tingling and the issues with the body, and then there are tinnitus, and there are other areas where you're not comfortable and still pursuing. So I wish you luck. I pray for you. I can do anything. Cool Beans here. Tell us. We would really like to assist.
Yeah.
Um, if you would like, can we discuss about the links that you had shared and then a few questions from the Cool Beans as well? Is that okay? I
Sure.
know you are on the East Coast. It is late. You are suffering this situation as well. Totally up to you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm more than happy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Um, so let me put these up. Let's start from here. So what is this? So this is react19.org.
Yes.
So
So this is a nonprofit that some colleagues have been working on setting up, and I've been get involved with. And this is, I think, from what I know, one of the first of its kind to help vaccine injured people injured from the vaccines. So
hmm,
it is purely about helping to find first medical providers who are interested in studying the injuries
hmm.
to looking to fund research to help guide us in terms of diagnosis and treatment, and three, raising some money to try to help some of the injured initiate care. Because I think one of the obstacles that we struggle with is really finding medical providers who, one, believe us, and two, have an interest in caring for us. And so
And
through
this
this
is
organization, we try to network and find people who are willing to work to help us, either research us or help channel people to get treatment.
so number one, thank you very much for setting it up. Number two, Cool Beans, anyone you know who would like to either support this organization or become part of it to have their own situation looked at as well or work in this one, I feel sad. I really am genuinely telling you, I feel sad that our administrations, healthcare authorities haven't reached a point yet to acknowledge and recognize, and then to say, here are the funds available, let's do something about it. I have
Right.
two questions which may be a little brash, and my apologies. One is, did people say that you're making it up?
I don't think that anybody ever said I was making it up. I have encountered people who were, they like I am in research, so I know all about attributing causality, right? When around a clinical trial or a drug in study. So I think people are conditioned now to approach things from initially from the point where uh, no, it's not possible, right? Whereas when I work in research, I always approach it from the standpoint from this is possible. So first we've got to look at ruling out why it can't be possible, right? You don't start from the premise of right away this isn't possible because
Correct.
if you work in research, especially drug research, every single drug has side effects. Some have adverse events, which are more severe, and some just have your normal side effects like nausea, vomiting,
Mhm.
headache, upset stomach type stuff, dizziness. But then there are some adverse events. I would challenge anybody to show me any drug that does not have the possibility for a side effect or an adverse event. So, like I said, I'm 100% pro vaccine. I'll
Mhm.
restate that here. But I'm also 100% pro science. So to deny that a vaccine can't have various adverse events or side effects in people when you roll it out to the general population is just anti-science. To
Agreed.
not help people who are injured uh, is unethical.
Agreed. So then, totally agreed. And then I have another question, again, maybe a little hard. Um, did anyone try to stop you from voicing this situation, discussing it, working for it, trying to see if we can help others as well? Because when I talk about these things, again, I'm a tiny little voice who's also presenting some education. Then I get a lot
Mhm.
of pushback, heat, complaints. What happens to you? Does this happen or no?
You mean in among friends and family
Somebody
or
saying,
among?
no, generally, you are popular, you are talking,
So I
and
think
people come.
people who know me know that uh, I'm pretty well educated. I
Mm,
worked across two fields, not only medicine but also international development. So people who know me, if I say something, they know that it must be true because I just not a kind of person who fabricates things or dramatizes things. So I think people are shocked when I tell my story, but I haven't actually for a long time. When I was first injured, I didn't really tell anyone or talk about it. I was
mhm.
actually very sick and I was scared and I was on a search for help and I was getting nowhere, which was making me more in despair. I've had a few people in the beginning say, "Well, aren't you just being anxious?"
Mm.
Right? And I said, "Well, yes, if you're injured or you have experienced a reaction, of course you're going to be anxious. That's a normal human response to a life-changing event. So yes, I'm anxious, but the difference is the symptoms are driving my anxiousness, not the reverse." So I haven't really faced too much. I think in the medical community in the beginning, I did face a lot of skepticism. I think it's because it was new and things were rolling out. people didn't know, they didn't have experience with these vaccines, right? It was all new. So
Mhm.
nobody knew the range of side effects and adverse events. Everybody was just learning as we were going. We only knew the basics of what we were told
Mhm.
from, that the ones that were known in the early parts of the trials. So,
Got it. Thank you. And I'm going to give you a live example. This is an example right now. Here is a guy who comments, yes, balls. So you can see his, and of course, the message. Dr. Bean, refusal to stand up for truth. So we are talking about vaccine injury. And he's still saying refusal to stand up for truth, medical honesty, and safeguarding public health, along with tyrannical meg and blatant censoring of dissent, will be downfall of yours and your channel. And this is what is also a part of our um, society. So I was trying to figure out if you get pushback. So thank you very much for this.
mhm.
Let's go back to the messages, the links that you were showing. So this is one. Can you talk about this?
Yeah, so this is a study that there was a paper written early on in, I think, Muscle and Nerve. You have it listed there. The first case of somebody who diagnosed small fiber neuropathy post COVID-19 vaccination at the University of Vermont. And I think they are trying to launch a study with others who might have developed small fiber neuropathy after the vaccination. So they're looking for participants. And this is a link here where people can fill out their information to be contacted should this study uh, take off.
Are you okay if I share that link with the community?
Yes, I'm not involved in the study. I just got wind of it because I've been following all the research, of course. And
Got it.
I think you do need to reside in the United States. And I'm
Mhm.
not sure if you have to be close to their facility in the, in Vermont or the Northeast. So
Got
that
it.
the details I'm not too familiar with. But I thought it would
Got
be interesting to highlight that there is some research starting now, which is a good
it.
sign for those who are affected. And hopefully, through our organization, we can also stimulate some more studies.
Got it. Cool. So thank you very much. And audience, I have put the link there. If you are interested in participating in this study, this is their paper. And then
Mhm.
here there is a form that you can fill and they would figure it out. Again, I have no association with them. As Sean said, he
Mhm.
doesn't have any association. This is just part of the research, and this may be a study that you might be interested in or may be able to help others by this. Um, Sean, how would a person, so a few questions I want to show you that there are some
Mhm.
folks who actually are in a similar situation. I really want to see how would you guide them to say what can be the options. So can I start with a few questions?
Mhm.
Okay, so here is Barb Wood. Has flu vaccine injured joined with you? I've been going through this for 3 years.
Uh, I we haven't made any formal partnerships with other people injured by other vaccines. I think what we're trying to do is have a focus right now as a new organization, um, and then once we get our feet off the ground and we're up and running with our own injury, then possibly there's definitely maybe room to grow, to get involved with people who were injured by other vaccines. But I think right now we're trying to focus on this pool of people because we have been poorly neglected to date, and there has been no research whatsoever um, that made, or at least made public, that I know of, other
Got
than
it.
some of the studies that are done on possible hypotheses and things, but none involving people and possible treatments.
Got it. Thank you very much. And there was a question about the React link. So I have just placed a link there as well.
Mhm.
Again, I wanted to continue to clarify. I have no association with Sean's organization. Sean, you are here. You can. I have no influence on any of the organizations, no financial, no commercial interests. My total interest is this: I'm sitting here discussing these things to see maybe some folks can be uh, saved, they can be aware, some doctors can be aware. That is, and this is my channel, here is a video. That is my area
Right.
of interest.
I mean, just to go back to what you said about, have I had any pushback? And I think, what I haven't, but I know a lot in my injured community have, and they have faced a lot of problems interacting with the medical community. They've been labeled with things like functional neuro, they've been labeled as anxiety or depression. And I think, from my perspective, I think what you bring is just a refreshing perspective because you investigate every angle of things. And that is why I come on willingly. I highly respect your work. I think the world we live in, they want everything to be black and white, right? So if you say something against something, then you're, in one camp. If you say something for the other side, you're pushed into that camp. And the reality of the world in science is that it's everything. Nothing is black and white as we like it to be, right? The vaccines are good; they have a purpose in ending the pandemic, but they also can cause injuries. That is a fact.
Yeah, agreed.
You know,
So thank you very much for your comment. Thank you for giving us your time. Thank you for sharing. This is painful, and then even with the last videos, I saw that there was a lot of support for you, lots of prayers, and there
right?
were some insensitive comments as well. So I'm sure that it is painful to put yourself out there, but thank you for doing this.
I appreciate all of that support. It hasn't been easy, and I have not been. I'm not the kind of person who's ever spoken out before.
Yeah. So Joy Fisher says, Sean, please don't give up. Don't give up into the despair. That's another danger you face. So please keep reaching out. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to see if there are some more questions. There were some questions that rolled up. So, audience, if you had questions, please write them again. I'll try my best to. So, Anne Scanlon says, any explanation for tinnitus? Tinnitus, I have heard neuroinflammation. Anything make it better? Is it likely to improve?
So the research is still nascent. We don't know, right? The neuroinflammation is one hypothesis. And I don't think that not everything is black and white. I don't think that all the injured are the same. So we all have overlapping symptoms, but many of us are also different in many ways. So I know some people who have had developed tinnitus, but theirs was a result of hearing loss, right? So that's a very different etiology. There are some who have developed tinnitus and had no hearing loss detectable, either at low or high frequencies. So there could be another etiology there of neuroinflammation, right? So I think we're not all the same, but I don't think we have an answer yet on what's causing it. My only hope is that it is some type of inflammation and will dissipate with time.
Got it. Got it. Thank you. There's a question from Luis Grande. Have you tried to contact Dr. Stephen Phillips, chronic Lyme specialist, or Dr. Afrin MCAS specialist? I'm glad you still have avenue to pursue and hope you find a turnaround therapy soon. Have you contacted Dr. Stephen Phillips?
I have not.
So I'll connect you to. He is a marvelous doctor, writer of the book, author of the book Chronic, has been on my channel a few times, has a lot of experience and might be able to help. I actually thought that Dr. Keith Barkovich is also a very, very good option because he has been managing long COVID parts and neurological issues for some time. And even today, when we were talking, he has a lot of experience. Um, I'm going to ask, so Dr. Z, she's actually a cool bean here. I think she's in psych. So she's saying, please let us know else how else we can support aside from donations.
For the organization. So I think we're looking for if people know of medical professionals around the world or the country who are open to and interested in seeing patients with vaccine injury would be good to let us know. People who want to help, if you're in research and want to uh, help us get research going, that would be another way, or connect us to researchers who might be interested. So those are some of the other avenues.
Anything we can do for you?
Me personally, I think just keep hope and faith. And
Got
if you hear of papers published on the subject, get them known to us or to you, Dr. Bean, so that we can share that information.
Got it.
If people find treatments that work, share the information. There's many support websites that we have set up where we share that kind of information, which have been lifelines for people.
Got it. Thank you very much. John Doe says, please ask Sean about his VAERS reporting experience.
So I reported all of my own adverse reactions. I don't think to date that any of my doctors have submitted it.
Got it.
I don't know why. Maybe they just don't have the time, or they just didn't do it. I think it's something I need to look into and ask them about.
Yeah, it might be interesting to see. There may be a reason, or they may be busy, but either way, I think it should be reported at
Yes,
least by the
but I
doctor.
have reported every single one of my events.
Got it. Austin Root says, Sean, thank you so much for sharing your story and your findings. I'm dealing with nearly identical symptoms 6 months after the C19 vaccine. Hang in there, we'll find a solution.
I hope so.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the question, so please don't mind. So let's take one or two more questions. Try placebos. Gabrielle says, COVID-19 recovered patients also suffer these effects, or are these real unique to the vaccine only? That's an interesting question. Do you have any insight that long COVID or post-COVID have similar effects as well?
I do notice that in the research, a lot of the symptoms mimic long haul COVID. There's different theories on why that is. One is reactions to spike protein. Um, we not enough research to really draw any conclusions. But it is an oddity that we do share some of the same symptomatology.
And I think that actually kind of guide us as well, that in the vaccine it's only the spike, and in the COVID there is a whole virus, but it seems like something unique to spike. And from there we can start kind of thinking about antibodies, and we can thinking about ACE2
Right. I
modulation
mean, there's
effect.
been many hypotheses, right? There's
Yeah.
been like where people directly injected into the blood vessel, and did that, create something? Did they hit a nerve when you were injected? So I don't know. They're
We,
all hypotheses right now.
yeah,
We don't really know.
we don't have the pathology yet.
No.
And I suspect that pathology is going to be multiple systems and multiple failures and multiple
Right.
pathologies, not one.
Exactly, because we're in some ways similar, but we're all also very different. Like some people had clear-cut cases of Bell's palsy. Some people had, Guillain-Barré syndrome. Some people had transverse myelitis. Some people have this other auto antibody sequelae. So
Endocrine issues.
yes, multiple. There's just all kinds of things. Like with anything, with any drug, anything can happen to people.
Got it.
It's just unfortunate when it happens to you, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Happy Valley Farm says, Did he have muscle loss too?
I didn't have any muscle or motor nerve, like large fiber nerve issues. Thing, luckily,
Got it.
mostly
So,
small nerve neuropathy,
one more
autonomic.
question. Got it. Saranto says, are there reliably statistics on the rate of vaccine injury occurrence? So I think she's
I
saying,
mean, I can only speculate. I'm not, in charge of
yeah,
compiling, but I would imagine with any system, it's imperfect, right? So
yeah,
you capture data in certain time frames, and is the data is only as good as who's entering the data and what data is being put in and over what time period, right? So if you develop, like I had developed atrial fibrillation, but it was like many months down the road, right? Would somebody attribute that to the vaccine? Or could you just say, oh, because your vaccine was in January, now you have AFib? Are
hmm.
they two different things?
It's
But
independent.
yeah,
Yeah,
but if you do the deeper analysis, I've had
yeah, you
cardiac
see the
instability
correct.
from the beginning and it's
Yeah,
just progressed. So
yeah,
it's data is only as good as
I
who's
agree.
putting in what.
Yep. Um, Queen City Dom says, could IVIG help with the ACE2 antibody that Sean has shown positive for the Celtran labs?
That I
Hmm,
don't know.
got it. Um,
We would need an immunologist expert or somebody who's doing deep research in anti-ACE2 antibody.
yeah. Augie says, have you heard of the investigational drug Zofin? Recovered 11 long haulers.
I have not.
Got it. So this is where we are. The questions are there. For example, Living Wellness says, I have blue fingers, had a blue underarm, and apple sized swelling in my armpit, in addition to disabling pain. Have you heard anyone like that?
I
There are
have
just
not.
so many side effect types.
Right.
Uh, so, Sean, thank you very much for sharing your time with us, sharing your experience with us. Hopefully, some healthcare professionals, they might hear this, they might see where further to dig, where further to research. There are lots of papers that can help guide as well. There are lots of videos, talks. I've
Mhm.
done some talks, others have done talks. Your experience, there are others whose experiences are out there as well. And then at the end, I want to show once again your message. And here is your organization. This is react19.org. And so, Sean, anything on the closing?
I would just want to thank you again for all the work that you do, for highlighting all the science, being true to science, and also giving me a platform to share my views. My goal is by doing this to get the word out, to find people to help us. We are in desperate need of um, medical practitioners that are interested in helping us, who are following the science and looking for answers.
Praying for your health, for your recovery, and praying that this actually moves forward, and hoping that with your experience and then um, your efforts, may more people be saved and be protected. Thank you very much. Have a good night. And Cool Beans, thank you very much for listening in and tuning in as well. See you on Monday. Bye bye.
Okay, thank you.